Hello and welcome to another video from earnped.com. I am Stevie B. Happy to have you all with me today. Today I want to get started right out the gate. We got plenty of sips and smacks for you guys, but I want to catch the load screen because when I log in, there should be a message pop up that's only going to pop up one time. It's very, very important to today's video, very, very important to you guys. So I want to try and catch that on video if I can, and then we will get right to it. I also have an update for you guys about all my real life stuff. That will be coming at the end of the video. But first things first, let's get all about Entropia, all about what Mindark has done with Calypso Land Deeds, and the good, the bad, the ugly. This really screws a lot of players over. It's really good for a lot of other players. So it's one of those things that it can go both ways. I do think Mindark should have given us a lot of advance notice. They should not have just done this, but it's done. It's just how it is, so we've just got to roll with it. So as soon as we log in here, we should get the message as soon as we pop up. I'll read through it for you guys if it pops up, and then we will go over it in detail so you guys understand exactly what's going on here. Okay, so first of all, happy Valentine's Day. Cool. So let me pull out my FAP and I'll get some healing done. And then is the other message going to pop up? It does not look like it. Okay, so it doesn't look like the other message is going to pop up. However, we will need this link right here. So we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so if you logged in, I guess it's not going to pop up. If you logged in the other day, yesterday or day after, what you found out was Calypso Land Deeds have now been put on the Entropia Exchange. There was a message that would pop up as soon as you logged in that explained this. However, I guess it's not going to pop up for me. I really wanted to catch it on video. So this is absolutely horrible if you're a CLD owner, and I was. It can be good for lower level players, I guess. It can be good for the economy as a whole. It's something that it's just going to be the way of the world moving forward. However, this is really something that's going to put a monkey wrench in a lot of people's gameplay, and it's really going to cause a lot of players, especially a lot of big level players, a problem. So let's talk about why that is and how that is as I kill some of these drones. So first of all, CLD, Calypso Land Deed, it was the deed that kind of started it all. They were about 3,000 PED on auction last week, give or take, I believe. This was the deed that, it was like the Big Daddy deed. It was the deed everybody wanted to have. It was the deed that Moon Deeds and Underground Deeds wanted to be when they grew up. And prior to the share system, which was not even a thing until Crystal Palace was sold, it was the deed that kind of ruled all deeds. So CLD was kind of the one that most people wanted to have, if you could afford it. Most people went with Arcadia Underground Deeds just because they were more affordable. But if you had really decent money in game, you probably had CLD. Now, there was also something called a CLDX. And the reason there was a CLD and a CLDX, the only difference is at one point, the CLDXs had been used to get land plots. Land plots were a thing Mindark tried years ago. And that's where, like, you see, like, gardening profession and stuff like that, and some of the weird fruit that you have to mix different fruits together. It all comes from the land plots when they were supposed to have, like, factories and stuff where it was supposed to be, like, this whole thing. It really never took off. So if you had CLDs back then, and you used them to get land plots, then that's why your CLDs were converted to CLDX. However, if your CLDs were never used to get a land plot, they just stayed the regular CLD without the X designation. Well, now CLD and CLDX have been put on the Entropia Exchange, along with Crystal Palace, along with Treasure Island, along with all that. So let's pull up the exchange real fast. And we can see that, sure enough, the Calypso Land Deed Trust, I have 300 shares at the moment. That's because I had 300 CLDX. Each CLD, or CLDX, has now been converted into 100 shares of the Calypso Land Deed Trust. So if I go looking through my inventory, I'm not going to find any actual land deeds. So like these are my Arcadia Underground deeds. I carry them in my inventory, right? This will be important later on whenever you guys see why this is such a huge problem. So these are my Arcadia Underground deeds. They're physically in my inventory. Well, notice that my CLDX are now gone. They're no longer here. It's because they no longer exist. Now they're here on the exchange as Calypso Land Deed Trust shares. And I have 300. I got 100 for each of the CLDXs that I had. So if you have a CLD or CLDX, doesn't matter which it is, you will get 100 shares for each CLD that you had, each Calypso Land Deed. So that's a real problem, because whenever Mayhem would roll around, my CLDs were what I used as collateral for my rentals. Each of those CLDs was worth about 3,000 PED. So if I had 3 CLDs or 3 CLDXs, I had 9,000 PED worth of collateral. I could just go to whoever I was renting gear from, open a trade window. I could take my CLDs, like I could these Arcadia deeds because they're tradable, throw them in the trade window, and they would give me whatever I was renting from them, and that's how I did my rentals. That's how I rented my gear for Mayhem. That's how I rented everything. That's how most big players have been doing rentals. That's how most rental services work. You have to give collateral. Well, what was our big collateral? CLDs usually. You didn't want 9,000 different stacks of crap from your hunting tab. You wanted CLDs or CLDX or a big stack of Arcadia Underground deeds. And you would trade these to another player. They would trade you an item that you were renting or borrowing, and then you would trade back when you were done. Well, the problem is now I don't have CLDX anymore. I don't have CLD. Now I've got these 300 stupid shares of the Calypso Land Deed Trust. What good does that do me? I mean, yes, I'm going to get the income from them when the income starts paying out. However, right now, they're just stuck on the exchange. That's the whole reason I didn't buy more Crystal Palace shares when they first came out. I could have sold my CLDX and used that money to buy Crystal Palace shares if I was only interested in the residual income, if I was only interested in that payment every week. But it was about more than that. Yes, the payment every week is nice, but it was also about having that store of value that I could trade to another player easily as collateral for items that I wanted to rent, items that I wanted to borrow. Now I can't do that. Now I would have to sell my Calypso Land Deed Trust shares, convert it all to PED, and then I would just have to give them pure PED. This is horrible for big players. I know a player right now who has an investment service, very large name player, I won't say who, but it would be somebody you would all know. Every single person watching this video would know this person. He has an investment service. I've got a very good friend who wanted to invest in that investment service. He gave him 6 Calypso Land Deeds as his investment. How's he supposed to get that back now? That person was holding his 6 Calypso Land Deeds as an investment. And he's been paying him every month, but the point was he was supposed to be able to get those 6 land deeds back at some point. Well, now my friend not only doesn't have his land deeds, but this guy who owns this investment service now has 600 shares of the Calypso Land Deed Trust. How's he supposed to get those shares and hand them back to my buddy that rightfully owns them? Mindark didn't think about any of this before they did this. They just did this without caring, which, again, doesn't surprise me. It is Mindark. I see where they're going with this. I see how they're trying to make this work, but they didn't bother to even ask the players. They didn't bother to look at any of the mechanics of the game at all. Ask the players, how do you interact with these? They knew that we trade these around for collateral. They knew that people had these traded for investment service investments, stuff like that. What if you're a player who has a rental service and last week somebody gave you a whole bunch of CLD or CLDX to hold on to as collateral? Bam, they just got transferred into shares. How are you going to give it back to them? If you can't give it back, how are you going to get your gear back that was rented? Mindark's lucky they didn't do this in the middle of Mayhem. If they'd done this in the middle of Mayhem, it could very possibly have crashed the economy. So I have no idea what the CLD shares are going for at the moment. Let's take a look. 34.39 each. Okay, not bad. I mean, that's all good and dandy, but here's the problem. Now we have to use the share system to try and sell shares. Okay, well, this is a good system for the system that it is. However, this is not the system I would have wanted to sell my CLD or my CLDX under. If I had known in advance they were going to do this, I would have just liquidated my CLD on auction and been done with it. Now, do I think they hold their value? Yeah, they might even go up in value because now they're more affordable. Now, players who couldn't afford 3,000 PED for a single CLD can afford 40, 50, 60, 70 PED for 1/100th of a CLD. So, I see how this can be beneficial for players who already had it. Who knows? These things might shoot through the roof. I doubt it, but they could. But it causes a lot more problems than it fixes. It fixes no problems. It might fix a problem for MindArk. However, all it does for the player side is cause problems. Like I said, the one thing that maybe might be beneficial there is now, since each CLD was converted into 100 shares, there are players who couldn't afford an entire CLD that can afford 1/100th of a CLD. So they can afford 1 share, or they can afford 2 shares, but they could not have been able to afford an entire CLD. So that is the small saving grace. Now, you might also have these in your inventory if you were a CLD owner. If you were a CLDX owner, you are beat. You will not have this. However, if you were a CLD owner, you will have this. So what is this? This is the Calypso Land Plot token. So remember, CLDX at some point in the past, years ago, had been used to try and get a land plot. However, regular CLDs had not. When they put all the CLDs and CLDXs on the exchange, when they made them into shares, what they did is they went ahead and they said, okay, if you have CLD, not CLDX, but regular CLD, we're going to go ahead and give you land plot tokens. So that's what these now are. Now, land plots have kind of been a flop ever since inception. The entire thing really never took off. They are floating around out there, and now all of a sudden all these land plot tokens have been created just because they said whenever we do all these conversions, essentially what they did is when they put it all on the exchange, they converted every CLD into a CLDX, and then they converted all the CLDXs into Calypso Land shares. So CLDs, the back-end process behind that we can't see is when they went to list everything on the exchange, they said, okay, everybody who has CLD, it's now converted to CLDX. Now they have their CLD, plus they have their land plot tokens. So all the CLDs in game were made into CLDX. They'd all been used to create all the land plots as originally designed by MindArk years ago. Then they took all the CLDXs and they just converted them into shares. So, like I said, this is a big, big thing because, A, this has been something that has been on our minds for a while now as players, as investors, as people looking to participate in the economy. Like I said, I would have sold off all my CLD and put it into Crystal Palace shares had I only been interested in the residual income. The reason I kept my CLD was because it was not just the residual income. If I wanted to invest in somebody's investment service, or if I wanted to rent an item from a rental service, or if I wanted to borrow an item from a friend, I just went and I got a CLD or a couple of CLDs and I threw it to them. I was like, hey, here's my collateral. And it was easy. If I didn't return their stuff, they could just liquidate it on auction. Now, we have had a problem over the past several years, ever since CLD came out, really, I guess, where sometimes things happen and people would have a big stack of CLDs, they'd go to put them on auction, and they'd realize they sold them for literally next to nothing. This is mainly due to a flaw with the way the auction system was set up and the way the percentages worked, and people just not paying attention whenever they were putting their listing up there or being drunk while trying to operate the auction function. So that was really a headache for MindArk. It was really a headache for a lot of players. I get that. But MindArk could have done something about that without totally screwing up the mechanics of how CLDs and collateral worked in-game. If MindArk thinks that getting people away from doing item rentals is somehow going to benefit them, I do not understand that concept, because it's just the opposite. There are a lot of players that can't afford 80, 90, 100,000 PED weapons and armor and gear that are willing to rent it come Mayhem and just blow out their PED card on Mayhem and Migration and all these events, that now will not be able to do that, because now all that value that we would use as collateral is tied up in shares. I have no earthly idea what I'm going to do whenever Easter Mayhem rolls around and I need to rent all my gear, because now I've got a ton of money tied up in CLD shares, Calypso Land Trust shares, and in my Crystal Palace shares. It was one thing to have the money tied up in Crystal Palace shares. I planned on that. But I hadn't planned on the money being trapped in the exchange on the land trust side. That was something I had never even considered, because why would you do something so stupid? Well, I get why MindArk does it. They want fewer items in game. They're trying to take strain off the server. They're trying to streamline a lot of stuff. But this is the type of thing that you really should have given the player base a lot of heads up. Not even a couple of days. How about 6 months? Hey, in 6 months, we're going to put these on the exchange. You won't be able to trade them in game. You won't be able to use them as collateral. If you want to get rid of them, you've got 6 months to sell them off. That would have been a nice heads up. I would have sold mine off for sure. But they didn't do that. So this is where we are. I really feel for a lot of players out there that are now stuck in weird, awkward situations. Example, my friend that has the investment where he gave the guy 6 CLDs. That guy now has 600 Calypso Land Deed Trust shares that he cannot just easily hand back to my friend. Versus previously, if my friend had said, hey, I decided I want to cash out of the game, I've had some stuff happen in real life or, whatever, dude could have just jumped over to his inventory, grabbed the CLD, and then just met up with him, opened a trade window, and it would have been done. So this is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of players. It's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of big players, a lot of big name players, a lot of big money players. And this is where I think MindArk's going to feel the pain, and I think they are going to feel pain for once. MindArk really didn't gain anything by doing this, other than maybe taking down some server strain and taking some items out of the game and a few less support cases. But I guarantee you they're going to feel a ton of blowback because they have just caused huge financial problems for many, many players they did not want to cause financial problems for. This is the equivalent of going to your biggest customers and your most loyal customers and causing them problems that some of them may not be able to overcome. So it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem. So keep an eye out for news on that. Keep an eye out for all kinds of drama on that. But that's essentially where we are. There is no more CLD. There is no more CLDX. It is now officially part of the exchange. You cannot use these shares in any way, shape, or form in order to do collateralized trades or rentals. It just can't be done. So this is the way of the world moving forward. And yes, if you had CLD, then you will have those land plot tokens now as well. So this is the way of the world. This is the Entropia we live in moving forward. And we will see how it goes and what MindArk does about it moving forward, if they are supportive of the people that they just caused a whole lot of problems for, or if, per normal, they just blow it off and act like it's not their problem, they did nothing wrong. So this may open doors for players who don't have bigger bankrolls to buy shares of the land trust that they would not have been able to get previously. That's great. I think that's a very, very good thing. I think long term, it's probably an okay thing for the game. The game will adapt. We'll find other ways to collateralize our trades. But short term, it causes a lot of problems, most of which could have been solved with just a little bit of notice. Again, MindArk really sucks at this, but had you just communicated with your player base, hey, 3-6 months out from now, we're going to be putting these on the exchange, it wouldn't have been an issue at all. It's the fact that they just did it without telling anybody. They seem to forget that in a real cash economy game, you actually have to tell people what you're going to do. Otherwise, there are real cash, real economy consequences. They keep forgetting this concept, which is amazing to me. So I'm going to stop ranting and raving about it. Obviously, I'm kind of ticked off. I hadn't really planned on selling my CLD anyway. So it's not like it's a big game changer for me. It's not like I'm that upset about it. I'm just kind of ticked because I can't use them as collateral now. And it's going to be a pain to sell them when I do eventually someday get around to selling them, if ever. But for now, I'm good with it. So I'll leave it right there for today. Now, to give you guys an update about real life stuff, I know I'm getting messages from people, hey, are you okay? No, I am not okay. I am not even kind of okay. If you saw my video the other day, you know that right after Christmas, the person who means more to me than anything in the world almost died. Literally almost died. And that is the best news that I have to report. So think about what I'm telling you. That's the best news that I have to report. I can't tell you guys what's going on. It's private. It's personal. Frankly, it's nobody's business but ours. So unless you're one of the people directly involved, none of your business. There's also a lot of legalities around it. A lot of stuff that I can't speak about for legal reasons. But needless to say, it has been the most horrific nightmare ever. I actually had a nightmare the other night, a brutal nightmare, and woke up screaming. And somebody said, why are you screaming? Like, what happened? What was the nightmare? I said, no, I'm not screaming because I had the nightmare. I'm screaming because I woke up, and this is worse than the nightmare. So, it's bad. There have been multiple times over the past couple of weeks I haven't slept for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. Not because it was by choice. I didn't have a choice. I had to. It's not that I wasn't able to sleep. I physically couldn't sleep because I had stuff that had to be taken care of. People I had to be there for. I was up all day, went to work all night. My father had a procedure done on his lung, was up all day with that. Went back to work all night, was up all day again. I can't explain how bad it is, guys. So that is why I've said, if you guys need me for the foreseeable future, please head over to my email, sbraggs62@gmail.com, sbraggs62@gmail.com. That is the email that I check pretty regularly, once a day, once every other day, something like that. And if you guys are needing anything from me, holler at me there, because that's where you're going to be most likely to find me. I really haven't even logged into the game except for to shoot a couple of videos about very important things, or just to kind of keep you guys updated. Because how can I deal with something like this? How can I deal with Entropia and having fun and trying to have a good time when people's lives are on the line? Their entire futures are on the line. When I say lives are on the line, I mean that literally. I was having a conversation last night before work. I think I got 2 hours of sleep yesterday. And it was a literal life or death conversation we were having. Whether you live or die being a pretty big deal. Like, it's pretty heavy. So I know that I can't give you guys a lot of info, and I know that's really not helpful. I know that really doesn't explain anything. Needless to say, imagine your world just caved in on you. What else do you do? So I'm trying to handle it best I can. The anxiety's there, the stress is there. I'm surprised I haven't had a heart attack. No, I'm not dead, not yet. I'm still here, and God promised he would fix it all when we got here. So that's what I'm counting on, because if he doesn't, it can't be done. That's the only way it can be done. I don't see how it's possible even with him, but, you know, he can do whatever he wants. So needless to say, it's bad. I say that to let you guys have a glimpse into my life so you know what's going on. I'm not just hanging out playing Entropia all day. I'm really dealing with some heavy stuff here. So if there's something Entropia related or earnped.com related that you need, holler at me through my email. Again, sbraggs62@gmail.com, sbraggs62@gmail.com. I'll holler at you right quick. Other than that, I'm going to leave it there for today. Sip, sip, smack, smack. You all know the rest. Head over to earnped.com, because when you earn, we earn. That's by far the best way you guys can support us. Also, hit that bell icon and subscribe to the channel. Every like we get, every subscriber, every person that watches these videos, it really means a lot, because it helps us get these videos in front of people who have played similar games but may not even know about Entropia. That helps us get Entropia out there. It helps us get the channel out there. It helps us grow the economy of the game as well as our own following. So every like, every Stevie, every subscriber matters. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we put out new content. I'm going to try and keep you guys updated as much as I can, both about what's going on in game and what I'm dealing with in real life. I'm going to try and keep both of those coming for you guys. I do appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys checking on me. I appreciate you guys going, bro, are you okay? No. No, I'm not okay, if you want the real answer. But I do appreciate it. It means a lot. Keep the prayers coming, because we definitely need those. We're not out of the woods yet. It's going to be a long process, but we will get there. So we will be back with more content for you guys later this week. Till then, sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest.